The cold in Silver Creek, Colorado wasn't the kind you could dress for. It was February cold, the kind that found every gap in your jacket, every crack in your resolve. The kind that made smart people stay indoors and desperate people make terrible choices. The Black Ridge Motorcycle Club's clubhouse sat at the edge of town like a scar on clean skin. It was the kind of place mothers warned their children about. The kind of place where the music was too loud, the smoke too thick, and the men too rough around every edge. But it was also the kind of place where, if you were in real trouble, if you'd run out of every other option, you might find help. If you were brave enough to ask. Garrett Stone sat alone at the far end of the bar. That was his spot, had been for 3 years, ever since he'd rolled into Silver Creek, on a bike he'd bought with his discharge papers still warm in his back pocket. 32 years old, though his eyes looked older. Not the kind of older that comes from years, but the kind that comes from seeing things, doing things, carrying things that have no business being carried alone. Afghanistan had taken pieces of him. Not his legs, not his arms, but pieces that mattered just as much. Pieces he couldn't name and didn't talk about. The MC had given him something resembling purpose. Brotherhood, a reason to keep moving forward when forward was all he had left. He nursed his whiskey slowly. The amber liquid caught the dim light, and for just a moment, he let himself remember. Remember what it felt like before. Before the sand and the heat and the things he'd done with his hands that he couldn't take back. Before he'd learned that sometimes the right choice feels exactly like the wrong one. The jukebox played something old. Cash or Haggard, he couldn't tell anymore. The voices around him blended into white noise. Laughter, arguments, the crack of pool balls, home or as close as he'd get. Then the door opened. The cold came in first. It always did. A wall of frozen air that made everyone look up, made everyone notice. But it wasn't the cold that made the room go silent. It was the child. She stood in the doorway, barely visible through the flood of frigid air, and she was impossibly small. 7 years old though, Garrett couldn't have guessed that. She might have been 5. She might have been 10. Pain had a way of making age irrelevant. Her feet were bare. In February, in Colorado. The skin was raw and red, cracked from cold. She wore a thin cotton nightgown, soaked through. The fabric clung to her small frame, and Garrett could see she was shaking. Not just shivering, shaking the way a building shakes right before it collapses. Her arms were covered in bruises, dark purple storm clouds running from wrist to shoulder, and around her throat, clear as day, red and angry and fresh, was the unmistakable impression of a hand. Fingers that had squeezed, fingers that had meant to kill. She stood there for maybe 3 seconds, swaying slightly, her enormous brown eyes scanning the room, looking for something, someone, hope maybe, help, something. Then she whispered. It was barely a voice, barely a sound. But the clubhouse had gone so completely silent that every man in that room heard her as clearly as if she'd screamed it. They're killing my mama. And she collapsed. Garrett was moving before his brain caught up. His stool clattered backward, 4 strides across the worn wooden floor, and he was there catching her before she hit the ground. His hands that had held rifles and grenades, and the wounds of dying friends wrapped around this tiny broken child and pulled her against his chest. She was light as air, shaking like a leaf in a storm. Her skin was ice cold, and up close he could see more. More bruises, more hurt, dirt under her fingernails, mud in her hair, blood on her feet from running through God knows what. He knelt on the floor with her in his arms, and something happened inside his chest. Something he hadn't felt in years. Not since before Afghanistan. Not since before he'd learned to lock everything dangerous behind walls he'd built too high and too thick to ever climb again. Something cracked. Hey, he said, and his voice came out rough, unused to gentleness. Hey, little one, I got you. Her eyes fluttered open, brown eyes dark as coffee, wide as moons. They looked at him with a desperation that belonged on a battlefield, not on a child. Don't let her die, she whispered. Please, don't let Mama die. Someone get a blanket. Garrett snapped at the room, overtaking his eyes off the girl. Call Doc Rivera. Now. Nobody argued. Not with Garrett Stone. They'd learned. Blankets appeared from somewhere. Mags, one of the club girls, brought water. The room shifted around him, creating space, and Garrett was dimly aware of his brothers forming a perimeter, watching the door, checking the windows, because whatever had done this to a child might be right behind her. The little girl gripped his jacket with both hands. Her fingers were so small they barely wrapped around the leather. She held on like he was the only solid thing left in her world. "My dog," she whispered suddenly. "Bruno, he brought me. He's outside. Don't let him freeze." Garrett looked up. Colt, 6'5" of solid muscle and bad attitude, was already heading for the door. He returned 30 seconds later with a massive Rottweiler, wet and panting, who immediately pushed past everyone and pressed his broad head against the girl's side. The girl exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for hours. Her hand found the dog's fur tangled in it, held on. "Good boy," she murmured. "Good Bruno. You're such a good boy." Garrett watched the dog, then looked back at the girl. Bruno's eyes were sharp, intelligent, protective. The kind of dog that would follow a child through hell if she asked. "What's your name?" Garrett asked softly. The girl looked at him. Something moved across her face. Hesitation, calculation, something way too old for a 7-year-old. "Emma," she said finally. She paused, looked at him harder like she was measuring him against something in her head. "Emma Stone." The room was very quiet. Garrett's hand, which had been rubbing her back gently, went completely still. Stone, his last name. He told himself it was coincidence. Silver Creek was small, but not that small. There could be other families named Stone. It meant nothing. Had to mean nothing. "Emma," he said carefully. "Where's your mama?" The little girl's chin trembled. He watched her fight it. Watched her jaw tighten, watched her eyes go hard, trying desperately to be brave when she was completely shattered. She said. Emma's voice cracked. She pressed her lips together hard, started again. She said if anything really bad happened, I should find the bikers at the Black Ridge. She made me memorize it. She made me promise. A tear slipped down her cheek. She said they were good men, even if they looked scary. Something in Garrett's throat went tight. "Who hurt your mama, sweetheart?" The brown eyes filled with tears that refused to fall. Like she'd learned, been forced to learn how not to cry in front of people who might use it against her. "Derek," she said. The name came out flat, cold, filled with the specific hatred that only comes from long personal experience. Derek Vaughn. The name landed in the room like a grenade with the pin pulled. Garrett felt it detonate in his own chest. Derek Vaughn. He knew that name. God help him, he knew that name. "What's your mama's name?" he asked, and his voice was barely above a whisper now. The little girl looked at him with those impossible dark eyes. "Claire," she said. "Claire Bennett." The world stopped. Garrett Stone didn't move, didn't breathe. Around him, the clubhouse continued. Colt was on the phone with someone. Brothers were pulling on jackets, checking weapons. Someone was spreading a map on the pool table. But Garrett was somewhere else entirely. 8 years ago, summer in Silver Creek. A girl with dark hair and darker eyes who laughed at all his terrible jokes and saw straight through every wall he'd ever built. A girl who took one look at him, rough, angry, directionless Garrett Stone, with his bad reputation and worse attitude, and decided he was worth something. Claire Bennett. He had loved her the way people only love once, completely, recklessly, like she was oxygen and he'd been drowning his whole life. He'd loved her with every broken piece of himself, and she'd loved him back, impossibly, against all logic. And then Derek Vaughn had made it very clear what would happen if Garrett didn't disappear. Garrett had been 24, young and stupid and scared. Derek had sat him down in a dark room and shown him photographs. Photographs of Claire, at work, at home, asleep. Photographs that said, I know where she is every moment of every day. You walk away, Derek had said, or I hurt her in ways that'll make her wish she was dead. Your choice, Marine. So Garrett had walked. He told himself it was the brave thing, the right thing, the only thing that would keep Claire safe. He'd left in the middle of the night without a word, without explanation, and he'd buried himself in anything that would keep him moving fast enough that the grief couldn't catch up. He'd gone back to the Marines, volunteered for deployment. Afghanistan. He'd thrown himself into the kind of work that made thinking impossible. And when he'd finally come back discharged and empty, he'd made damn sure never to set foot in Silver Creek again. Until 3 years ago, when the nightmares got bad enough that he'd needed brothers who understood. The MC had been in Silver Creek. He told himself it was far enough on the edge of town, that he'd never run into her, that she'd moved on, married someone good, forgotten all about the coward who'd left her. He'd been wrong. Garrett looked down at the little girl in his arms. Brown eyes, his mother's eyes. He hadn't thought about that in years. His mother who died when he was 17, who'd had those same deep brown eyes that saw everything. Emma Stone. The calculation hit him like cold water. 8 years ago. 8 years minus 9 months. Emma, he said, and his voice came out strange, stripped bare, raw in a way that made several of his brothers look at him with concern. How old are you? The little girl looked at him steadily. 7, she said. I'll be 8 in April. Garrett closed his eyes, counted to 5. When he opened them again, something had changed in his face. Something had hardened and softened simultaneously. The look of a man who just had his entire world rearranged in the span of a single breath. He stood up, still holding her, and turned to face his brothers. Derek Vaughn has Claire Bennett, he said. His voice was controlled, quiet, the kind of quiet that was more dangerous than shouting. He has her somewhere on the mountain, probably the old Miller property off Route 9. He used it before, 6 years ago, for business that needed privacy. I know the place. Colt stared at him. Garrett. This little girl, Garrett said, and his voice almost broke, is Claire's daughter. He paused. The words came out like broken glass. She might be mine. The room was absolutely silent. Emma looked up at him with those 2 old eyes and said nothing. But she didn't look surprised, and somehow that told him everything he needed to know. Let's go, Garrett said. Doc Rivera arrived, then a woman in her 50s who'd patched up more bikers than she could count and never asked questions. She took Emma from Garrett's arms with gentle efficiency, and Garrett felt the loss of that weight like losing a limb. I'll take care of her, Doc said quietly. Go get her mother. Emma was laid on the couch. Bruno pressed against her side, watching everyone with suspicious eyes. Garrett knelt down next to her one more time. I'm going to get your mama, he said. I promise you that. But I need you to tell me what happened. Can you do that? Emma nodded. And then in a voice that was too measured, too careful, too controlled for a 7-year-old, she told them. Derek Vaughn had come back 3 weeks ago. He always came back eventually. That's what Emma said with a matter-of-factness that made grown men look away. He came back and he was the nice for a little while, and then he wasn't. Mama always tried to get Emma out of the way when he wasn't nice. Sent her to her room. Told her to put on her headphones, watch videos, be quiet. Told her everything was fine. But tonight was different. Tonight, Emma had heard her mother scream in a way she'd never screamed before. Tonight, Emma had heard Derek say things. Terrible things. Final things. The kind of things that even a 7-year-old understands mean this time he's not going to stop. So Emma had done the only thing she could think of. The only thing Mama had ever told her to do if things got really truly bad. She'd slipped out her bedroom window, in her nightgown, in February, in the mountains of Colorado. She'd run to the backfield where Bruno slept in his doghouse, and Bruno, who'd been her best friend since she was 3 years old, had taken one look at her face and stood at attention. I told him we needed to go to the bikers, Emma said simply. The ones Mama told me about. Bruno always understands what I mean. She'd climbed on his back, 110 pounds of loyal, devoted Rottweiler, and they'd gone through the forest, 2 miles, in the dark. No shoes, no coat, no light. The temperature below freezing. The path barely visible. The trees closing in on both sides like walls. 2 miles, because her mother had once told her very quietly on a night when Derek had left bruises on her arms that looked like Emma's arms look now. If anything ever happens, if it's really, really bad, you find the Black Ridge MC. You ask for help. They're good men, baby. They'll come. Claire Bennett had sent her daughter toward the one place she'd always believed was safe. The one man she'd never stopped trusting. Even when he disappeared. Even when she thought he was gone forever. Garrett sat very still while Emma told her story. He didn't look at anyone. He stared at the floor, jaw tight, a muscle working in his cheek. When she finished, she looked at him with those eyes that were so much like his mother's, it hurt to look at them. "Are you going to help my mama?" she asked. He looked up, and for the first time all night, something in his face broke open completely. Not in weakness, in the kind of resolve that comes from a man who has spent years running from something and has finally irreversibly decided to turn around and face it. "Yes," he said. He stood, put his hand very gently on top of her head. The first time in his life he'd ever touched his daughter with full knowledge of who she was, who she might be, who she had to be. "Stay here with Bruno," he said. "Doc's going to take care of you. I'm coming back, and I'm bringing your mama with me." Emma Stone looked at this man she'd never met and somehow had always known, and she nodded once, with the dignity of someone twice her age. "I know," she said quietly. "I knew you would." They came down Route 9 in the rain. 6 bikes running dark, no headlights, moving like shadows through the night. Garrett rode point. The cold rain hit his face like needles, but he barely felt it. His mind was miles away, 8 years away. The old Miller property sat at the end of a half-mile dirt road hidden behind a tree line that made it invisible from the highway. Garrett knew it because 8 years ago, Derek Vaughan had used it for business that couldn't be conducted anywhere with witnesses. Drug deals, beatings, worse. Garrett knew it because he'd been brought there once. Brought there as a warning, as a lesson, as a very clear demonstration of what Derek was capable of. He'd watched Derek hurt a man, really hurt him, and Derek had smiled the whole time. "This is what happens," Derek had said, "when people don't listen to me, when they don't do what I tell them. Do you understand, Marine?" Garrett had understood. He'd been 24 and terrified and certain that the only way to keep Claire safe was to disappear completely, to never contact her again, to let her think he'd just left because he didn't love her enough. Better that than dead. Now 8 years later, riding through the rain with his brothers behind him, Garrett finally understood the truth. The truth that Emma had proven tonight with her bare feet and her bruised arms and her 2-mile run through the dark. Bravery wasn't leaving, bravery was staying. He'd been a coward, and Claire had paid the price. For 8 years, alone, with a child, his child. The rage that filled him was cold and controlled and absolute. They cut the engines a quarter-mile out, moved on foot through the trees. Garrett led them with the kind of precision he'd learned in the Marines. Hand signals, silence, every step calculated. The Miller property came into view through the rain. Old house, 2 stories, lights on in the back, 3 cars in the driveway. Garrett's jaw tightened. 3 cars meant Derek had people with him. This wasn't just domestic violence. This was planned, organized. Colt appeared at his shoulder phone in hand. He'd been texting with someone getting intel. "Problem," Colt whispered. "Intel says there's at least 8 guys inside, maybe more. Derek's been using this place for a while, running something out of it." "I don't care if there's 20, Garrett said quietly. "We're going in. I know, just saying we need to be smart, in and out, get Claire and go." Garrett nodded. "You take Mitch and Wyatt, go in the back. I'll take the front with Kane and Reaper. We make it fast, loud. They won't be expecting us. And if they are..." Garrett looked at Colt, smiled without humor. "Then we improvise." They moved into position. Garrett could feel his heart pounding, but his hands were steady. This was familiar. The adrenaline, the focus, the narrow tunnel of purpose that drowned out everything except the mission. Get Claire, get out, keep everyone alive, simply. Except nothing was ever simple. Garrett reached the front door, counted to 10. Then he kicked it open. The sound was like thunder, wood splintering, hinges screaming, and then they were inside, moving fast, weapons up, voices shouting. Black Ridge, nobody move. The front room was chaos. Men scrambling, chairs falling, Someone reached for a weapon and Kane had him on the ground before he could blink. Garrett moved through it like water. His eyes scanned faces, corners, doorways, looking for one person, Claire. He found her in the back room. Almost didn't recognize her at first, not because she changed so much, but because the sight of her hurt in a way that momentarily stopped his ability to process anything. She was on the floor, hands bound behind her back, one eye swollen completely shut, blood on her lip. Her dark hair was matted and tangled. Her shirt was torn, but she was breathing, her chest rising and falling, alive. Garrett crossed the room in 3 strides, dropped to his knees beside her. His hands bent to the rope at her wrists, fingers working the knot with a steadiness that surprised him. "Claire," he said. "Claire, I'm here. It's me. It's Garrett." Her one good eye opened slowly, focused, then went very, very wide. "Garrett." Her voice was barely a whisper, broken, confused. You're not." She stopped. Something complicated moved across her battered face. Pain, relief, disbelief. "How did you?" she tried. "Emma," he said. The rope came free. Emma got out. She rode Bruno 2 miles through the forest in the dark to come get me. Claire made a sound Garrett would never forget. Something between a sob and a prayer. "She got out," Claire whispered. "She made it." "Is she?" "She's safe. She's at the clubhouse. She's fine, Claire. Doc Rivera's with her." The rope fell away. Claire's hands came forward and Garrett caught them, held them. They were ice cold, shaking. She looked up at him. Even with one eye swollen shut, even with blood on her face, she was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. "I didn't know about Emma," he said, and his voice cracked. "I swear to God, Claire, if I had known." "I know," she said. Her fingers tightened around his. "I know you didn't." "Is she?" His voice dropped to almost nothing. "Is she mine?" Claire looked at him for a long moment. Rain hammered the roof. Somewhere in the house, his brothers were securing the building, but in this room, it was just the 2 of them. 8 years of silence between them. "From the first day," Claire said softly, "she's always been yours." Garrett Stone, who hadn't cried since he was 17 years old, since the day his mother died, pressed his forehead against their joined hands and breathed. Just breathed. "We need to move," he said finally. "Can you walk?" "I'll crawl if I have to." He helped her up. She swayed on her feet, and he wrapped an arm around her waist, took most of her weight. They moved toward the door. And that's when Derek Vaughn stepped into the hallway. He wasn't alone. 2 men flanked him, both armed. Derek himself held a gun pointed directly at Claire's head. "Well," Derek said, smiling, "this is unexpected. Garrett Stone, back from the dead. How's Afghanistan Marine kill anybody interesting?" Garrett went very still. His arm tightened around Claire. "Let her go, Derek. Let her go." Derek laughed. "I've been waiting 8 years for this moment. 8 years. You think I'm going to let either of you go now? This is between you and me. Let Claire leave. Then you and I can settle whatever you think needs settling." "Oh, Garrett, you still don't understand." Derek's smile widened. "This was never about you. It was about her. Always her. I told her back then that she was mine, that she'd always be mine. But she chose you, so I had to make you leave. And when you did like the coward you are, I thought that was it. I'd won." Claire's fingers dug into Garrett's side. "You're insane," she whispered. "Am I? I gave you 8 years, Claire. 8 years to come to your senses, to realize you belonged with me. But you had his brat instead. You hid from me, moved around, kept that little girl like some kind of trophy." Derek's voice went cold. Tonight was supposed to fix that. Tonight was supposed to erase him completely. "You're not touching her again," Garrett said quietly. "Or Emma. Ever." "Emma." Derek said the name like it tasted bad. "That's a pretty name for a bastard. Tell me, does she know her daddy's a coward who ran away?" Something in Garrett's chest went cold. The same cold he'd felt in Afghanistan right before the shooting started. The cold that meant someone was about to die. "Last chance," Garrett said. "Put the gun down." Derek raised it higher, aimed at Claire's head. Come get her, Marine. And then everything happened at once. Colt came through the side door. Derek's men turned. Gunfire cracked through the air, deafening in the enclosed space. Garrett shoved Claire behind him, reaching for the knife at his belt because he'd left his gun with Kane and there was no time. Derek's gun swung toward him. And then a massive shape came out of nowhere and hit Derek like a freight train. Bruno. 110 pounds of Rottweiler teeth bared hit Derek's center mass and took him down. The gun went flying. Derek screamed. Bruno had his arm shaking his head like he was trying to tear it off. Call him off. Derek shrieked. Call him off. Garrett didn't move. Just watched. Watched this man who terrorized Claire for years. Who'd beaten a 7-year-old child. Who'd made Garrett leave the woman he loved. Call him off. Derek screamed again. Garrett glanced at Colt, who had both of Derek's men on the ground disarmed and restrained. Then he looked back at Derek. Bruno, he said quietly. Off. The dog released, stepped back, but stayed close, teeth still bared, waiting for permission to attack again. Derek clutched his bleeding arm, backing against the wall. You're dead. You're both dead. You'll do nothing, Garrett said. He stepped forward, stood over Derek. You're done. This is over. It'll never be over. I'll find you. I'll find that kid. Garrett's fist connected with Derek's jaw before he could finish. Derek's head sat back. He slumped against the wall, dazed. Talk about my daughter again, Garrett said softly, and next time I won't pull the punch. Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had called the cops. Good. Garrett turned back to Claire. She was leaning against the wall, pale and shaking but standing. Bruno had gone to her, pressing against her leg. Who's a good boy? She whispered, running her hand over the dog's head. Who's my good, brave boy? Garrett crossed to her, cupped her face, gently careful of the bruises. We need to get you to a hospital. I need to see Emma first. Claire. I need to see my daughter, Garrett. He looked at her, saw the iron will beneath the injuries. The same will that had let her survive 8 years alone. The same will that had taught a 7-year-old to ride a dog through hell. Okay, he said. Okay, let's go home. The drive back to the clubhouse happened in a blur of rain and red lights. An ambulance met them halfway, but Claire refused to get in until she saw Emma. The EMTs tried to argue. Claire just looked at them with her one good eye and said, I've waited 8 years to not be separated from my daughter. You can check me at the clubhouse or not at all. They followed in the ambulance. Garrett rode beside Claire in Colt's truck, keeping one hand on hers the whole time. She hadn't let go since they'd left the Miller property. Her fingers were wrapped around his, like if she released him, he'd disappear again. Maybe he would have 8 years ago, but not now, not ever again. Tell me about her, Garrett said quietly. Tell me about Emma. Claire's face softened despite the pain. What do you want to know? Everything. So Claire talked. Her voice was rough, damaged from screaming, but she pushed through it. Told him about the pregnancy, how she'd realized 3 weeks after he left, how she'd been terrified and alone and convinced she'd lost the only man who'd ever really seen her. I tried to find you, she said. Called everywhere. Your phone was disconnected. Your apartment was empty. Nobody knew where you'd gone. It was like you just vanished. I'm sorry, Garrett said, and the words felt pathetically inadequate. I know why you did it. I figured it out later after Derek started showing up. Started making it clear he thought I belonged to him. That you'd only left because he'd made you. She looked at him. You were trying to protect me. I was a coward. You were 24 and scared. And Derek Vaughan is... She trailed off. He's evil, Garrett. Pure evil. I don't use that word lightly. She told him about Emma's birth. April 15th, 8 years ago. 7 pounds, 3 ounces. Born screaming with her eyes wide open, looking at the world like she was ready to fight it. She looked like you, Claire said. Still does. She has my coloring by your mother's eyes. You showed me that picture once, remember, of your mom when she was young. Garrett remembered. He'd kept that picture in his wallet through 2 deployments. Lost it somewhere in Kandahar. Emma was an easy baby. Too easy. She barely cried. It was like she knew we had to be quiet, like she knew we were hiding. Claire's voice went tight, because we were. I moved 6 times in the first 2 years. Different towns, different states. Always looking over my shoulder. Derek had connections everywhere. I was terrified he'd find us. But he did. Not for a while. I got careful. Used cash. Didn't keep friends. Didn't stay anywhere long. She paused. It was lonely. Emma deserved better. She deserved friends, stability, a real home. So 3 years ago, I risked it. Came back to Silver Creek because I thought maybe enough time had passed. Maybe Derek had forgotten about me. He hadn't. No. But he left us alone for 2 years. I started to think maybe he really had moved on. Let me go. Emma started school, made friends. She was happy. For the first time in her life, she was really happy. Tears slipped down Claire's face. And then 3 weeks ago, he showed up at my door. Garrett's jaw tightened. What happened? He was different, calmer, said he just wanted to talk. So I let him in, because I'm an idiot, because I thought maybe after all this time, he'd become a human being. She laughed bitterly. He lasted 2 days before the mask came off. Started with little things, showing up at my work, following me to the grocery store. Then he got angry, said I'd wasted his time, that he'd given me years to come to my senses, and I was still being stubborn. Did he hurt Emma? Not then. I kept her away from him as much as I could, sent her to friends' houses, kept her at school late, but he knew. He knew what she meant to me. Tonight her voice broke. Tonight he said he was going to kill me in front of her, make her watch, said it was my fault for not understanding that I belonged to him. Garrett's hand tightened on hers. He's never touching either of you again. I promise you that. You can't promise that. Derek has money, connections, and lawyers. I don't care. He's done, Claire. One way or another, he's done. They pulled up to the clubhouse. Claire was out of the truck before it fully stopped moving as fast as her injured body would allow. Garrett caught her elbow, steadied her. The EMTs scrambled after them. Inside, Doc Rivera was still with Emma. The little girl was asleep on the couch, buried under leather jackets, Bruno pressed against her side. She looked so small, so breakable. Claire made a sound like her heart was breaking. Emma, she whispered. Emma's eyes opened. For a half second, she looked confused, disoriented. Then, she saw her mother and was moving off the couch across the room, colliding with Claire at full speed. Claire went to her knees with a gasp of pain, but her arms wrapped around her daughter and held on like Emma was the only thing keeping her anchored to the earth. Neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. Garrett stood in the doorway and watched his daughter hold her mother, and the thing in his chest that had cracked open when Emma first appeared shifted again, filled with something he didn't have a name for, something that felt like purpose, like belonging. Like coming home after the longest deployment of his life. Emma lifted her head from her mother's shoulder, looked at Garrett. He looked back. Then Emma held out one small hand toward him. Garrett crossed the room, took that small hand in his much larger one, crouched down until he was eye level with her. Up close, the resemblance was undeniable. His mother's eyes, the shape of her face, even the way she held herself guarded but brave, ready to fight if necessary. You brought Mama home, Emma said, not a question, a statement of fact. I did. Are you going to leave again? The question hit him like a bullet, simple, direct, devastating. No, Garrett said. His voice was firm, certain. I'm not leaving, not ever. I promise you that, Emma. People break promises. I know, but I won't break this one. Emma studied him with those 2 old eyes, measuring, calculating, deciding whether to trust him. Then she leaned forward and put her small arms around his neck. Garrett Stone wrapped his arms around his daughter for the first time and held on. The EMTs checked Claire over, confirmed what Garrett already suspected. Broken ribs, concussion, internal bruising. They wanted her in the hospital. Tomorrow, Claire said. Tonight, I'm staying with my daughter. They argued. Claire was immovable. Finally, they left supplies, pain medication, strict instructions, and a promise that if Claire's condition worsened even slightly, they'd be back. Doc Rivera stayed. She set up a watch rotation checking Claire every hour. The clubhouse settled into a quiet vigil. Brothers taking turns keeping watch, making sure Derek didn't somehow get out and come after them. It was unlikely, but nobody was taking chances. Emma refused to leave her mother's side. She lay curled against Claire on the couch, Bruno on the floor beside them. And for the first time in what must have been hours, she let herself be small. Let herself be scared. "Mama," she whispered, "I was so scared." "I know, baby, I know. But you were so brave, so brave. I thought you were going to die." Claire's arms tightened around her daughter. "I'm not going anywhere. I'm right here." Derek said. Emma's voice got very quiet. He said terrible things. Don't think about what he said. Don't give him that power. "But Mama." "Shh, it's over now, it's over." But Garrett, sitting across from them in a chair he'd pulled close, knew it wasn't really over. Wouldn't be for a long time. Emma had seen things tonight, heard things, lived through things that would leave scars. Claire had survived years of abuse, of running, of fear. Healing would take time, maybe a lifetime. But they'd do it together. That was the thing. That was what mattered. They weren't alone anymore. Emma eventually drifted off to sleep, exhausted beyond measure. Claire stayed awake, staring at nothing, one hand in her daughter's hair. Garrett moved to sit beside her on the couch, not touching, just close. "Tell me about the last 8 years," he said quietly. "Not the Derek parts, the other parts. Tell me about raising her." So Claire did. She told him about Emma's first word, which was "Mama." Her first steps at 10 months old, walking toward a dog at the park. Her first day of school, where she cried for 10 minutes, then marched in like she owned the place. She told him about Emma's obsession with dinosaurs. At age 4, her insistence on wearing a purple tutu over everything for an entire year. Her habit of talking to Bruno like he was human and expecting him to answer. "She's brilliant," Claire said. "Scary smart. Reads at a 6th grade level already. Math comes to her like breathing. But she's also kind. So kind it breaks my heart sometimes. She's the kid who brings home hurt animals. Who shares her lunch with the kid who forgot theirs. Who stands up to bullies twice her size." Like her mother, Garrett said. Like her father, Claire countered. "You never backed down from anything." "I backed down from you." Claire was quiet for a moment. "You thought you were saving me. That's different than backing down. I should have stayed. Should have fought. You were 24, Garrett. You just come back from your first deployment. You'd seen things, done things that changed you. And Derek knew exactly how to exploit that. He knew you'd leave if you thought it would keep me safe. Still, stop." Claire looked at him. "We can't change the past. We can only decide what happens next. And what happens next? That's up to you, isn't it?" Garrett looked at Emma asleep in her mother's arms. "I want to be in her life, in both your lives. If you let me, let you, Garrett, you're her father. Biology doesn't make me a father. Being there makes me a father, and I haven't been there. You didn't know, but I know now, and I'm asking, is there room in your life for me?" Claire's eyes filled with tears. "There's always been room. Even when I was angry, even when I thought you were never coming back, there was always room." They sat in silence for a while. Around them, the clubhouse had settled into sleep. A few brothers remained on watch, but most had found beds or couches. The rain outside had softened to a gentle patter. "I need to tell you something," Claire said finally. "About Derek. About why he's been so obsessed." "You don't have to." "I do, because you need to understand he's not going to stop just because he got arrested tonight. He has money, lawyers. He'll get out eventually. And when he does, he'll come after us again." Garrett's jaw tightened. "Then we make sure he can't." "It's not that simple. Derek's family has owned half this county for 3 generations. His father was the mayor. His brother's the sheriff in the next town over. People protect him. Look the other way. Not anymore. You don't understand. I tried to press charges 2 years ago. The cops came, took a report, and nothing happened. Derek showed up the next week with roses and an apology and implied that if I kept pushing, Emma would have an accident. He didn't threaten directly, never does. But the message was clear. That was then. This is now. You have witnesses, evidence, Emma's injuries, your injuries, my brother's who saw what he did to you. Claire shook her head. It won't matter. He'll say it was self-defense, that you attacked him, that we broke into his property. So what do you want me to do? Just let him walk. I want you to be smart. Derek plays a long game. He's patient, and he never forgets. Neither do I. They were interrupted by Colt, who appeared in the doorway with his phone in hand. Garrett, need to talk to you. Outside. Garrett looked at Claire. She nodded. Go. We're fine. He stepped out into the cold night air. The rain had stopped, leaving everything clean and sharp. Colt lit a cigarette, offered one to Garrett. He declined. What is it? Derek made bail 2 hours ago. Garrett went very still. How? Called in favors. Had his lawyer there before they even booked him. Judge set bail at 50 grand. He paid cash. He's out. He's out. Already filed a restraining order against you, by the way. Claims you assaulted him. That Claire and you broke into his property. That's bullshit. I know it's bullshit. You know it's bullshit, but it doesn't matter. He's playing the system and he knows how to win. Colt took a long drag. There's more. I made some calls. Derek's been busy the last few years. He's not just some small-time dealer anymore. He's connected to some serious people. Russian mob cartel connections, money laundering. If he wants to make you disappear, he can. Let him try. Don't be stupid. You've got a kid now. Claire's already been through hell. You really want to bring that down on them. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe you need to think about getting Claire and Emma out of here. Somewhere Derek can't find them. Let things cool down. I'm not running again. It's not running, it's being smart. I'm done running, Colt. I ran once and it cost me 8 years with my daughter. I'm not doing it again. Colt studied him for a long moment. Then you better be ready for war, because that's what Derek's going to bring. Let him. You sure about this? Garrett looked back at the clubhouse. Through the window, he could see Claire and Emma on the couch, Bruno at their feet. His family. His reason for everything. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. They went back inside. Garrett returned to his seat beside Claire, and for the rest of the night he kept watch. Watching over his daughter, his family. The life he thought he'd lost forever. Dawn came slowly, grey and cold. Emma woke first, disoriented, then remembered where she was. She sat up, looked around, found Garrett. You stayed, she said. I stayed. All night. All night. Something shifted in her expression. Not quite trust, but getting there. Can I ask you something? Anything. Why did you leave my mama? The question he'd been dreading. The one he had to answer honestly, because kids knew when you were lying. Because a bad man told me he'd hurt her if I didn't. And I believed him. I thought leaving was the only way to keep her safe. But it wasn't. No, it wasn't. I was wrong, and I'm sorry. Mama said you didn't know about me. I didn't, but if I had known I would have come back. I promise you that. Emma thought about this. Do you love my mama? Yes. Still, even after all this time. Still. Always. And do you want to be my dad? Garrett's throat went tight, more than anything. Even though I'm not perfect, I get scared sometimes. I have bad dreams. I don't always listen good. Nobody's perfect, Emma. Not even adults. We all get scared. We all make mistakes. That's not what family is about. What's it about then? Showing up. Being there. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Emma studied him with those sharp brown eyes. Then she nodded like he'd passed some test. Okay, she said. You can be my dad. And just like that, Garrett Stone's world shifted on its axis one more time. Claire woke up, then wincing. The pain medication had worn off. Doc Rivera appeared with more pills, water gentle hands checking vitals. You need a hospital, Doc said. Later. I need coffee first. And food. And to feel normal for 5 minutes. Emma crawled into her mother's lap, carefully mindful of the injuries. I'm hungry too. I'll make breakfast, Garrett said, standing. You can cook, Claire asked, surprised. I learned in the Marines. Don't expect gourmet, but I can handle eggs and bacon. He went into the clubhouse kitchen, a space that had seen more beer than breakfast over the years. Found eggs, bacon, bread. Started cooking while half the MC wandered in, drawn by the smell. Wyatt, a big man with kind eyes and twin daughters at home, sat down at the counter. Hell of a night. Yeah, that little girl of yours is something else. Rode it 2 miles in the dark on a dog. Takes guts. She gets it from her mother. And maybe her father. Garrett looked at him. Wyatt shrugged, just saying, takes guts to come back after 8 years, to face what you ran from. I didn't have a choice. There's always a choice. You made the right one. The eggs were done. Garrett plated them, added bacon toast, carried everything back to the main room where Claire and Emma waited. They ate together, the 3 of them, and for a moment it almost felt normal. Like a family having breakfast. Like they'd done this 1,000 times before. But then Emma asked the question that shattered the illusion. Is Derek going to come back? The room went quiet. Claire looked at Garrett. Garrett looked at Colt, who nodded confirmation. Yes, Garrett said, because lying to her would be wrong. He got out of jail. So yes, he's going to try. But you won't let him hurt Mama again. No, I won't. What if he hurts you? He won't. Promise. Garrett thought about that. About promises he couldn't guarantee, about the reality of men like Derek Vaughan who didn't play by rules, who had resources and connections and no conscience. I promise I'll do everything I can to protect you and your mama. Everything. Emma seemed satisfied with that. She went back to her eggs. But Claire's hand found Garrett's under the table and squeezed tight. We need a plan, she whispered. I know, he whispered back. A real plan, not just you acting tough and hoping it works out. I know. I'm serious, Garrett. I can't go through this again. Emma can't go through this again. You won't. I swear to you, Claire. This ends. One way or another, this ends. She searched his face, found whatever she was looking for, nodded. After breakfast, Doc Rivera finally convinced Claire to go to the hospital. Garrett drove her in Colt's truck, Emma in the back seat, with Bruno taking up most of the space. At the hospital, nurses and doctors asked questions, took photographs of injuries, filed reports. A police officer showed up, took a statement. Garrett sat with Emma in the waiting room, watching her draw pictures on paper a nurse had given her. She drew their family. Claire, Garrett, Emma, Bruno, standing in front of a house. Is this where we're going to live? Garrett asked. Maybe, Emma said. If you stay. I'm staying. You said that before. But what if Derek makes you leave again? He won't. How do you know? Because this time I understand something I didn't understand before. What? That protecting you doesn't mean leaving you. It means staying. No matter what. Even when it's dangerous. Even when it's hard. That's what family does. Emma added another figure to her drawing. A man standing far away from the house. She colored him in black, heavy, angry strokes. Is that Derek? Garrett asked. Yes. What's he doing? He's trying to get in, but he can't. She drew a fence around the house, then a wall, then something that might have been armed guards, or maybe just more fence. Because we won't let him. That's right, sweetheart. We won't. Emma put down her crayon and looked at him. I'm glad you came back. The simplicity of it. The honesty. It broke something in Garrett's chest and rebuilt it at the same time. Me too, Emma. Me too. Claire was admitted for observation. They wanted to keep her overnight, maybe 2 nights. Internal injuries needed monitoring. The concussion was severe. She needed rest. Emma refused to leave. Crawled into the hospital bed beside her mother, despite the nurses' protests. Bruno lay on the floor, big head on his paws, watching everything with suspicious eyes. Garrett pulled the chair close, sat vigil. Around midnight, when Emma had finally fallen asleep and Claire was drifting in and out from the pain medication, Garrett's phone buzzed. Text from Colt. Derek's making moves, calling in favors. Word is, he's planning something. Be ready. Garrett texted back. What kind of something? The permanent kind. Watch your back. Garrett looked at Claire and Emma, both asleep, both so vulnerable. He'd promised protection. Now he had to deliver. He stepped into the hallway, called Colt. Talk to me. Derek's pissed, Colt said. Apparently having a Rottweiler nearly tear your arm off will do that. He's claiming you attacked him unprovoked, that Claire is unstable. He's building a case to get custody of Emma. Custody. She's not his kid. Doesn't matter. He's claiming common law marriage, saying he's been the father figure for years. Got 3 witnesses ready to testify that Claire's unfit, that she's been keeping Emma in dangerous situations. That's bullshit. Course it's bullshit. But he's got lawyers and money and people who'll say whatever he wants. Meanwhile, you're a guy who just showed up out of nowhere claiming to be the father. Garrett's hand tightened on the phone. So what do? Fight. Get lawyers of our own. Prove Emma's yours with a DNA test. Document everything Derek's done. But Garrett, this is going to take time. Months, maybe years. And in the meantime, Derek's still out there. Where is he now? Last I heard, at his place. Under guard. Brother hired private security ex-military types. He's not taking chances after tonight. Good. Neither am I. Garrett ended the call. Stood in the quiet hospital hallway thinking. He'd spent 8 years running from the hard choices. 8 years taking the easy path, the path that let him feel like he was doing the right thing while actually just being a coward. No more. He went back into Claire's room, found her awake watching him. What's wrong? She asked quietly. Derek's making a custody play. Claims he's Emma's father figure. Got witnesses, lawyers, the whole setup. Claire closed her eyes. Of course he is. We'll fight it. How I have no money for lawyers. No evidence except my word against his. And Emma? Her voice broke. Emma can't go through a custody battle. She's 7 years old, Garrett. She's been through enough. I know. So what do? Garrett looked at his daughter asleep beside her mother. She was 7 years old and she'd ridden a dog 2 miles through frozen darkness to save her mother's life. She deserved better than this. Better than running, better than hiding, better than spending her childhood afraid. I need to tell you something, Garrett said. Something I've never told anyone. Claire waited. When I was in Afghanistan, there was a man, Taliban commander. He was terrorizing villages, killing civilians, hiding behind women and children. Command wanted him taken out, but every time we got close, he'd disappear. Had informants everywhere. Garrett, I volunteered for the mission, went in alone, found him, and he paused. I did what needed to be done, made it look like an accident. A building collapsed during a firefight, buried him and his guards. No evidence, no witnesses, just rubble. Why are you telling me this? Because I need you to understand, if I do what I'm thinking of doing, there's no going back. If I handle Derek the way I handled that commander, I become something different. Something you might not want around your daughter. Claire was quiet for a long moment. What exactly are you thinking of doing? Making sure he never hurts you again. Making sure he never tries for custody. Making sure this is over. You mean killing him? I mean ending this. That's murder, Garrett. It's protection. It's murder. And if you get caught, you go to prison. And Emma loses her father before she's even had a chance to know him. She was right. Of course she was right. So what then, Garrett asked. We run, hide, spend the rest of our lives looking over our shoulders. No, we fight legal. We get lawyers. We document everything. We prove Derek's abusive and dangerous and nowhere near father material. That could take years. Then it takes years. But at least you're here. At least Emma has her father. At least we're together. Claire reached for his hand. I didn't survive 8 years alone just to watch you throw your life away on revenge. Derek's not worth it. We're worth more. Garrett sat down hard, put his head in his hands. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. The legal way, the right way. I know how to fight, how to survive, how to kill if necessary. But protecting a family through lawyers and courts, I have no idea how to do that. Then learn. We'll learn together. What if it's not enough? Then we'll figure something else out, but we do it the right way, together. Garrett looked at her. This woman who'd survived years of abuse, who'd raised their daughter alone, who taught Emma to be brave and kind and strong despite everything. She was asking him to be better, to be the man she'd always believed he could be. Okay, he said. Okay, we do it legal, we do it right. Promise me. I promise. They sat in silence, holding hands while Emma slept between them. The next morning brought complications. A child services worker showed up. A woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a clipboard full of questions. She needed to interview Emma. Protocol for domestic violence cases involving minors. Garrett and Claire waited outside while the woman talked to Emma. 20 minutes felt like 20 hours. When Emma emerged, she looked tired but okay. The social worker spoke with Claire and Garrett together. Emma's a remarkable child, she said. Very articulate, very aware. She told me everything that happened. The abuse, the escape, coming here. She paused. She also told me about you, Mr. Stone. That you're her father. I am. Can you prove that? We can do a DNA test today if necessary. That would be helpful. Because right now, legally, Emma doesn't have a father on record. Her birth certificate lists Claire Bennett as mother, father unknown. I was gone. I didn't know about Emma. I understand, and I want to help, but you need to understand there's already been a petition filed. Derek Vaughn is claiming custodial rights as Miss Bennett's long-term partner and Emma's de facto father figure. He's not her father, Garrett said flatly. I understand that, but until we have proof and until the courts sort this out, my job is to ensure Emma's safety. Which means she hesitated. Which means I need to consider whether she's safe here. She's safe with us, Claire said firmly. I believe you, but Derek Vaughn has filed a complaint. Claims you're unstable, that you've been exposing Emma to dangerous situations and dangerous people. The social worker looked at Garrett. No offense. None taken. He's claiming the motorcycle club is a criminal organization. That Emma was endangered by being brought here. That's ridiculous, Claire said. This club saved our lives. Garrett saved our lives. Again, I believe you. But I have to follow protocol, which means I need to see where Emma will be living, her school situation, her support system. I need to ensure she has a stable, safe environment. She will, Garrett said. Give me 48 hours. Mr. Stone. 48 hours. I'll have a home set up, school enrolled, and everything Emma needs. Just don't take her from us. The social worker looked between them, seemed to come to a decision. 72 hours. But Emma stays with her mother during that time. And you, she looked at Garrett, need to get that DNA test done immediately. I also need background checks, references, proof of employment. Done. And Mr. Stone, if I find out Emma's in any danger, any at all, I won't hesitate to remove her. Do you understand? Yes, ma'am. After she left, Garrett turned to Claire. I need to make some calls. He spent the next 6 hours on the phone. Called in every favor he had. The MC helped. Colt knew a lawyer who specialized in family law. Wyatt knew someone at the school district. Other brothers pitched in with contacts, resources, muscle where needed. By evening, Garrett had one DNA test scheduled for first thing tomorrow morning. One lawyer retained, already filing paperwork to establish paternity and counter Derek's custody claim. One house rented 3 bedrooms, fully furnished with a fenced yard for Bruno. The landlord was an old Marine buddy who asked no questions. One school enrollment packet in progress. Emma would start at Silver Creek Elementary the following week pending court approval. One job lined up at a local construction company, legitimate work, good pay, regular hours. He showed Claire the paperwork while Emma played with Bruno in the hospital room. You did all this in one day. Had help. The brothers came through. Garrett, the house alone must cost. Don't worry about money. I've got savings from the Marines, and the MC takes care of its own. But, Claire, let me do this. Let me take care of my family. She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. Emma came over, climbed carefully onto the bed. Are we going to live in a house? We are, Garrett said. All of us are you too. If that's okay with you and your mama. Emma looked at Claire. Claire looked at Garrett. Something passed between them, a silent conversation, a decision made. Yes, Claire said. All of us. Emma beamed. Then her smile faded. What about Derek? Derek's not going to be a problem, Garrett said. But what if he comes? Then I'll be there. And Bruno will be there. And your mama will be there. And we won't let anything happen to you. Promise. Promise. But that night, Garrett got another text from Colt. Derek hired someone. Tracker investigator something. Saw him at the hospital, watching. Garrett stepped out into the hallway, called him. How do you know? One of the brothers spotted him. Ex-cop type, taking photos, asking questions. Derek's building a case. Let him. Garrett, this guy's good. If there's anything in your past Derek can use, he'll find it. Then he'll find 8 years of honorable military service and 3 years of clean living in the AMC. He'll also find bar fights, weapons charges that got dropped that thing in Reno 2 years ago. All legal, all justified, all documented. Maybe, but it doesn't look good to family court. Garrett was quiet for a moment. What are you saying? I'm saying Derek's playing dirty. He's going to make you look dangerous, unstable, like you're not fit to be around Emma. And he's got the money and connections to make it stick. So what do? Be cleaner than clean. No mistakes, no slip-ups. Give them nothing to use against you. Garrett hung up, feeling the weight of it. He'd lived his whole adult life one way, hard rough on his own terms. Now he had to be different. Had to be the kind of man a judge would trust with a child. Had to be a father. Over the next 3 days, Garrett learned what that meant. It meant showing up at the hospital every morning with coffee for Claire and hot chocolate for Emma. It meant reading Emma bedtime stories even though she was in a hospital bed and he was sleeping in a chair. It meant braiding Emma's hair badly when she asked and letting her teach him the right way. It meant playing endless games of Go Fish and losing gracefully. It meant talking to Claire late at night about everything and nothing. About their past, about their future, about the 8 years they'd lost and how to make up for them. It meant DNA test results that confirmed what he already knew. Emma Stone was his daughter. 99.9% certainty, legal documented, indisputable. It meant moving Claire and Emma into the new house, watching Emma explore her bedroom with wide eyes, seeing the toys and books. Garrett had bought the window seat perfect for reading the closet, big enough for adventures. It meant Emma running to him after exploring the whole house and saying, "This is perfect, Dad." And Garrett's heart stopping because she'd called him Dad without hesitation, without prompting, like it was the most natural thing in the world. It meant lying awake that first night in his own bedroom down the hall, knowing his daughter was 20 feet away, knowing Claire was in the room beside his, and feeling like maybe, possibly, he'd finally found something worth fighting for. But it also meant looking out the window at 2 in the morning and seeing a car parked across the street. Someone watching, someone waiting. Derek hadn't given up. The custody hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks out. Garrett's lawyer, a woman named Patricia Morrison, who looked like someone's grandmother and argued like a prosecutor, laid it out clearly. Derek's claiming common law marriage. In Colorado, if you've lived together and held yourselves out as married, it can be legally binding. He's got witnesses who'll testify he and Claire lived together, that he provided for Emma, that he was her father in every way that mattered. "That's a lie," Claire said. "I believe you, but we have to prove it, which means we need witnesses of our own. People who saw the abuse, documented evidence, medical records, police reports." "I have medical records," Claire said quietly. "From before, when Derek hurt me, I never pressed charges, but I went to the hospital. That helps. We also have Emma's testimony." "No," Claire said immediately. "She's not testifying. I won't put her through that." "Claire." "No. Find another way." Patricia looked at Garrett. Garrett looked at Claire. "Find another way," he said. Patricia sighed. "It would be easier with Emma's testimony, but I'll work with what we have. In the meantime, stay clean, both of you. No drama, no conflict, no giving them ammunition." But Derek had other plans. 1 week before the hearing, Emma's school called. Emma had been picked up by an unauthorized person, Derek Vaughn, claiming to be her father. Garrett was at the construction site when he got the call. He broke 3 traffic laws getting to the school. Found Emma in the principal's office, pale and shaking. Derek was there too, all charm and smiles with a lawyer beside him. Emma jumped up, ran to him. He caught her, held her tight. "Are you okay?" He tried to take me. Garrett looked at Derek. Something cold and murderous settled in his chest. "She's my daughter," Derek said calmly. I have every right. You have no rights, Garrett said, his voice deadly quiet. She's not yours, she's mine. DNA proves it. Biology doesn't make you a father. I've been in her life since she was born. You've been terrorizing her and her mother since she was born. That's a lie and you know it. The principal stepped between them. Gentlemen, this is a school. I'm going to have to ask you to leave and settle this in court. He tried to abduct my daughter, Garrett said. I have documentation, Derek's lawyer said, smoothly producing papers. Pending custody case. My client has legal standing to see the child. Not without supervision, not without permission. Which is why we came here, to arrange supervised visitation. No, Garrett said. Absolutely not. You can't stop me. I have rights. You have nothing. Get out. I'm not going anywhere until. Get out. Something in Garrett's voice must have gotten through. Derek's lawyer touched his arm, murmured something. Derek glared at Garrett, but backed toward the door. This isn't over, he said. No, Garrett agreed. It's not. After they left, Garrett sat with Emma while the principal called Claire. Emma was quiet, withdrawn, not crying but close to it. Talk to me, sweetheart, Garrett said. I was scared. I know. He said he was my daddy, that I had to go with him. He's not your daddy, I am. I told him that. He got mad. Garrett's hand tightened into a fist. What did he do? Just grabbed my arm. The teacher stopped him. Emma looked up at Garrett. I want to go home. Okay, let's go home. That night after Emma was in bed and Claire had checked on her for the third time, Garrett sat on the porch with Colt. Colt had brought beer. Garrett didn't touch his. He's escalating, Colt said. I know. Going after Emma at school. That's bold. Stupid but bold. He's trying to provoke me. Trying to get me to do something that'll look bad in court. Is it working? What do you think? Colt was quiet. What are you going to do? Nothing. I'm going to do exactly nothing. I'm going to be the perfect father, the model citizen, and I'm going to let the courts handle it. And if the courts don't handle it, they will. But if they don't, Garrett looked at Colt. Then I'll do what needs to be done. But not yet. Not while there's still a legal way. You're a better man than I am. No, I'm just trying to be the man my daughter needs me to be. The custody hearing happened on a Friday. Garrett wore a suit that fit wrong and felt like a costume. Claire wore a dress Emma had picked out. Emma stayed with Doc Rivera and Bruno, who had strict instructions to keep her safe and distracted. The courtroom was smaller than Garrett expected. Just a judge, lawyers, a handful of witnesses. Derek sat across the aisle with his lawyer and 3 people Garrett didn't recognize. The hearing took 4 hours. Derek's lawyer presented first, painted Derek as a devoted partner, a stable influence, a father figure who'd been cruelly pushed out by Garrett's sudden reappearance. The 3 witnesses testified about seeing Derek with Emma, with Claire playing the role of family man. It was all lies, carefully crafted, well-rehearsed lies. Then Patricia Morrison stood up. She methodically dismantled every claim. Produced medical records showing injuries Claire had sustained over the years, always around the times Derek was in town. Produced statements from neighbors who'd called the police for domestic disturbances. Produced school records showing Emma's absences correlated with Derek's presence. She presented the DNA results, proving Garrett was Emma's biological father. She presented employment records, background checks, character witnesses. Brothers from the MC who testified to Garrett's character. The construction company owner who praised his work ethic. Even Garrett's commanding officer from the Marines who'd flown in specifically to testify about Garrett's service and honor. And finally, she presented photographs from the night Emma had arrived at the clubhouse. Her bare feet, her bruises, the handprint on her throat. This, Patricia said quietly, is what Derek Vaughan's fathering looks like. The courtroom was silent. The judge asked questions, lots of questions, about Garrett's background, his relationship with Claire, why he'd left 8 years ago, why he'd come back now. Garrett answered honestly, about Derek's threats, about his cowardice in leaving, about Emma showing up at the clubhouse and his immediate decision to help. Mr. Stone, the judge, said finally, "You expect me to believe that you didn't know you had a daughter for 7 years?" "Yes, ma'am." "That Claire Bennett never contacted you?" She tried. I disappeared. Changed my number, moved away, joined the military. I made it impossible for her to find me because I thought I was protecting her. And now I know I was wrong. And I'm trying to make up for 8 years of mistakes. I'm trying to be the father my daughter deserves. The judge looked at him for a long moment, then at Derek, then at the evidence spread across her desk. I'll have a decision within 48 hours, she said. Until then, Emma Stone remains with her mother and Mr. Stone. Mr. Vaughan is to have no contact with the child or Miss Bennet. Bailiff will ensure restraining orders are filed immediately. The gavel came down. Outside the courthouse, Derek caught up to them. This isn't over, he said. I'll appeal. I'll fight this for years if I have to. Go ahead, Garrett said calmly. You'll lose. You think a judge's decision means anything? I own this town. I own the police, the lawyers, the people. You're nobody. You're nothing. I'm Emma's father. That makes me everything. Derek stepped closer. I will destroy you, both of you. And when I'm done, I'll make sure Emma knows exactly what kind of man you really are. A coward who ran. A killer who hides behind a badge. Garrett's fist connected with Derek's jaw before he could finish. Derek went down hard. His lawyer immediately started yelling about assault. Claire grabbed Garrett's arm. Garrett number. He needed to be told, Garrett said calmly. And I'm done talking. Security came, separated them. Derek was escorted away yelling threats. Garrett was held back by Colt and 2 other brothers who'd attended the hearing. That was stupid, Colt said. I know. Judge is going to hear about it. I know. Worth it. Garrett watched Derek being pushed into a car still yelling. Yeah, it was worth it. But that night Patricia called with bad news. Derek's filing assault charges, using the courthouse incident to claim you're violent and unstable. I hit him once. Once is enough. The judge is going to factor this into her decision. So what does that mean? It means you might have just lost custody of your daughter. Garrett sat down hard. Across the room, Emma was playing with Bruno, laughing at something. She looked so happy, so safe, so innocent. And he might have just lost her. There has to be something we can do, he said. We can present it as provocation. Derek said something that triggered you. We can argue temporary loss of control, not a pattern of behavior. Will it work? I don't know. Garrett hung up, sat with his head in his hands. Claire came over, sat beside him. What happened? He told her, watched her face go pale. They could take her, Claire whispered. They could actually take her away from us. I won't let that happen. How are you going to stop it? I don't know, but I'll find a way. Emma came over, sensing the tension. What's wrong? Nothing, sweetheart, Claire said, forcing a smile. Everything's fine. But Emma was too smart for that. She looked between them, fear creeping into her eyes. Is Derek going to take me away? The question hung in the air. Garrett pulled Emma onto his lap. No, I promise you, nobody's taking you anywhere. But what if the judge says I have to go? Then we'll figure something else out. Like what? I don't know yet. But we will. Because that's what families do. They figure things out together. Emma was quiet for a moment. Then can I tell you a secret? Of course. The night I ran away, when I was riding Bruno through the forest, I was really scared. I bet you were. But I kept going anyway. Because Mama needed me. Because I knew if I stopped being brave, something really bad would happen. Garrett's throat tightened. You were very brave. So now you have to be brave. Okay? Even when you're scared, you have to keep going. 7 years old and wiser than most adults. Okay, Garrett said. I'll be brave. Promise. Promise. The judge's decision came 2 days later. Sole custody to Claire Bennett and Garrett Stone, biological parents. Derek Vaughan was granted no custodial rights. Permanent restraining order issued. He was to have no contact with Emma Stone or Claire Bennett for a minimum of 10 years. Further investigation was ordered into Derek Vaughan's business practices and history of domestic violence. Criminal charges were being filed. They'd won. That night Garrett cooked a dinner. Spaghetti, Emma's favorite. They ate together at the table in their house, the 3 of them, plus Bruno under the table, hoping for dropped meatballs. Emma talked about school, about her friends, about a book she was reading. Normal things, kid things. Claire watched her daughter with tears in her eyes. Garrett watched both of them and felt something he hadn't felt in years, longer than years, maybe ever. Peace. After dinner, after Emma was in bed, after Claire had kissed her daughter good night for the 10th time, Garrett and Claire sat on the porch. The spring air was cool, but not cold. The stars were out. "We did it," Claire said softly. "We did. I still can't believe it's real. That it's over. It's real." She leaned against him. "What now?" "Now we live. We raise our daughter. We build a life." Just like that. Just like that. It seems too simple. Maybe that's the point. Maybe after everything complicated and hard and painful, simple is exactly what we need. Claire was quiet for a moment. "Then I love you, Garrett Stone. I never stopped. I love you too. I'm sorry it took me 8 years to come back. You came back when it mattered, when Emma needed you, when I needed you. I should have stayed. Stop. We can't change the past. We can only build the future. Then let's build a good one. The best one." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars, feeling the weight of 8 years slowly lifting. 3 months later, on Emma's 8th birthday, Garrett gave her a necklace, gold chain, 2 charms, a motorcycle and a dog. Emma put it on immediately, looked at herself in the mirror, then looked at Garrett with those brown eyes that were his mother's eyes, her eyes. "You're my dad," she said. "Not a question. A fact. I am. For real, forever. For real, forever. Even when I'm annoying, especially when you're annoying." She smiled, then hugged him tight. "I'm glad you came back." "Me too, kiddo, me too." 1 year later, almost to the day, they sat on the porch again. Same stars, same cool air. But everything different. Emma was 8 now, almost 9. Confident, happy, thriving. She'd made friends at school, joined a soccer team, started writing stories about a girl who rode a dog through adventures. Claire had gone back to nursing, was working at the local hospital, helping other victims of domestic violence find resources and safety. Garrett had been promoted to foreman at the construction company, was building something with his hands that would last, teaching Emma on weekends how to use tools, how to measure twice and cut once, how to create something from nothing. Bruno was getting gray around the muzzle, but still played with Emma every day, still slept at the foot of her bed every night. Derek Vaughan was in prison, 3 years minimum, possibly more. Multiple charges, multiple victims, who'd finally felt safe enough to come forward. It was over, really truly over. "Emma asked me something today," Claire said. "What?" "She asked if we were going to get married." Garrett looked at her. "What did you say?" "I said I didn't know, that it was up to you. Is it something you want? Is it something you want?" Garrett reached into his pocket, pulled out a small box. Inside was a ring, simple gold band, single diamond, nothing fancy, just real. "I bought this 3 weeks ago," he said. "I've been waiting for the right time." Claire's eyes filled with tears. "Garrett, I know I should ask properly. Get down on one knee, make a speech. But the truth is simple. I love you. I've always loved you. And I want to spend the rest of my life making up for the 8 years I lost. So Claire Bennett, will you marry me?" "Yes," she said immediately. "Yes." He slipped the ring on her finger, kissed her while the stars watched, and somewhere inside their daughter played with her dog, safe and happy and home. They say in Silver Creek that the night a barefoot girl rode a Rottweiler through the mountains is the night the Black Ridge MC found its heart. That before Emma Stone, they were just bikers. After they were family. They say Derek Vaughan learned what happens when you hurt someone under the MC's protection. That justice doesn't always look the way it does on television. That sometimes it's quiet and permanent and doesn't make the news. They say Garrett Stone became a different man. That fatherhood changed him in ways deployment never could, made him softer and harder at the same time, more patient and more fierce. But what they don't say, what nobody knows except the 3 people who lived it, is this. Emma Stone saved everyone that night. Not just her mother, not just herself. She saved Garrett too. Saved him from a life of running, of hiding, of never being enough. Gave him a reason to be brave when being brave was the hardest thing in the world. Some people find their way home through years of searching. Some find it on a freezing February night carried by a loyal dog through 2 miles of dark forest. Emma Stone always knew the way. She just needed someone to meet her at the door. And Gareth Stone was there. Finally, after 8 years, he was there. And he would never leave again.